Imagine losing everything you have in a single day. Your wealth is gone. Your home is destroyed. Your children are dead. Your health begins to fail. Even the people closest to you question your faith. If that happened to you, would you still trust God? Few people in history have suffered as deeply as Job. Yet thousands of years later, his story continues to give hope to millions because it answers one of humanity's greatest questions. Why does God allow suffering? The book of Job is not merely a story about pain. It is a story about unwavering faith, humility, perseverance, and the sovereignty of God. Today, we'll explore 10 powerful lessons from the book of Job that can transform the way you face life's greatest trials. 1. True faith is revealed during difficult times. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job 121. Job's story begins with unimaginable loss. In a matter of hours, he loses his livestock, his servants, and all 10 of his children. Yet instead of cursing God, Job falls to the ground in worship. His faith was never built on wealth or comfort. It was built on God himself. This is perhaps the first and greatest lesson of the book. Faith is not truly tested when life is easy. It is revealed when everything else is taken away. Our circumstances may change, but God's character never does. 2. Suffering is not always a punishment. Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man. Job 1:8. Before Job suffers, God himself declares him righteous. This changes everything. Many people assume that hardship is always the result of personal sin. Job's friends believed exactly that. But the reader knows something they do not. Job suffers not because he has failed God, but because he has been faithful. Sometimes suffering is not evidence of God's anger. Sometimes it becomes the stage where God's greater purpose is revealed. 3. God is still working, even when he seems silent. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold. Job 23:10. Throughout the story, Job desperately searches for God. He prays, he questions, he waits. But heaven seems silent. Even so, Job never loses the conviction that God still knows exactly where he is. Many believers experience seasons where God feels distant. Yet silence does not mean absence. Just because we cannot see God's hand does not mean he has stopped working. Like gold refined by fire, our faith is often strengthened in the furnace of waiting. 4. Not every voice offers godly wisdom. Miserable comforters are you all. Job 16. 2. Job's friends came with good intentions. At first, they simply sat beside him in silence. But eventually, they began accusing him. They insisted that hidden sin must be the reason for his suffering. Instead of bringing comfort, they added to his pain. This reminds us to be careful whose advice we accept. Not every religious opinion reflects God's truth. Sometimes the most faithful thing we can do for someone who is hurting is simply to be present. 5. God invites honest prayer. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Job 13:15. Job does not hide his emotions. He cries. He mourns. He asks difficult questions. He even wishes he had never been born. Yet through it all, he keeps speaking to God instead of walking away from him. The Bible teaches that faith is not pretending everything is fine. Real faith is bringing our deepest pain into God's presence. God is not threatened by honest prayers. He welcomes them. 6. Human wisdom has limits. The fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. Job 28:28. As the conversations continue, everyone believes they have the answer. Job speaks, his friends speak, Even Elihu offers his perspective, but none of them fully understand God's plan. Job eventually realizes that true wisdom does not come from having every answer. It begins with reverence for God. Some questions may remain unanswered in this life, but we can still trust the one who knows them all. 7. God is greater than our understanding. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Job 38, 4. After many chapters of silence, God finally speaks. Surprisingly, he doesn't explain why Job suffered. Instead, he reveals his majesty. He asks Job question after question about creation, the stars, the oceans, and the mysteries of the universe. The point is clear. If we cannot fully understand creation, how can we expect to fully understand the Creator? Faith often begins where understanding ends. 8. Humility opens the door to true knowledge. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Job 42. After encountering God, Job responds with humility. He realizes that his knowledge of God had always been incomplete. There is a difference between knowing about God and knowing God personally. Sometimes our greatest spiritual growth comes not from receiving answers.
9. Forgiveness is part of healing. The Lord restored Job's fortunes when he prayed for his friends. Job 42 verse 10. God asks Job to pray for the very friends who had wrongly judged him. Imagine that. The people who wounded him become the people he intercedes for. Forgiveness does not excuse what others have done, but it frees our own hearts from bitterness. Sometimes healing begins when we choose to pray for those who hurt us. The book of Job reminds us that faith is not about having all the answers. It is about trusting God even when life doesn't make sense. No matter what you're facing today, remember that the God who never abandoned Job has not abandoned you either. If this message encouraged you, subscribe to Living by Faith and join us as we continue discovering the timeless wisdom of God's Word.